Is why I left my UN job in 2022. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I have now so many more new followers that I'm so honored to have and serve. And therefore, I thought that this is time to renew some of the explanations or some of the ways that I have made my decision as to leaving the UN back in 2022 when there was not the funding crisis at all, but there was a COVID times in the peak. And that's how and why I have decided, and I wanted to talk more about it in case these are the questions that you're having, these are the doubts you're having. I just want to relate to it and voice this as well and give my reasoning as to why I have done it and also how I have done it. If you don't know me, my name is Asela Romanova. I am a life coach for transitioning humanitarians, and I have been coaching humanitarians to transition since 2021. And every time I talk to someone new, they always ask me about, well, what made you leave the UN? Or why did you leave the UN, right? And I have always answered these questions with pleasure. And I would like to do this video as well, this live session, where I talk about this in a way that is accessible to anyone who didn't get to talk to me and learn my reasons recently. So, leaving my UN job at P3 position as head of office in Ukraine when I made this decision was a prepared decision, I would say. And the way that I have prepared myself was by getting coached a lot since 2015 when I had my life crisis and depression and all about what is the point of me doing all of this work and why am I doing it, right? Because I have joined UN like I think many amazing humanitarians who really wanted to make a change, who really wanted to work with people who are suffering from the most devastating impact of the war, conflict, and disasters. And I think we all came to this work believing that with this institution, with this power of this institution, where we can be able to change a lot more and impact so many lives. I think that was the reason why we came. And then I went through different phases, different emergencies, different assignments, like being a national staff and an international staff. And then as I progressed in my career, I kept feeling like, okay, this is the time when I really contribute to the impact. This is the time when I really contribute to that impact. And I kept wanting and hoping that the next time when I'm in this position, I'm able to do this. Next time I'm in this position, I'm able to do that. And then kept going and going in the career ladder, and then feeling like the result that I was hoping to get to, result that I wanted to get to the people that I was serving, the refugees and displaced communities, I felt like the results were not as much as I could have hoped, or as not as much as I felt the input that we were putting into, the money we were putting into, the nerves, the stress, the input, all of this that we were putting into, I felt this was not matching the results that I was seeing on the ground. And plus, I was also looking at how sustainable the support that we were giving. And while some of the support we were giving, I think it was very sustainable, such as supporting legally the people with the legal assistance, or providing shelter to them. But then if the war continues or if the conflict continues, those houses are destroyed anyway. And then I felt like this was not really sustainable anyway. And sustainable solutions were not really part of humanitarian assistance, I felt, and humanitarian assistance that I really believed in. I think it made sense and so necessary in the first few months to half a year to a year, but afterwards there were other solutions needed, and I felt like my job was not giving the solutions that the people were needing. So after having calculated a lot of the analyzed and calculated a lot of the outcomes and seeing, is this really the outcome that was worth this much input, and is this outcome even is going to stay, or we're just trying to give a bandage to wounds that need to be solved any other way. I felt like it was not there, and therefore I've become more disillusioned. I felt more disappointed, and I felt like there were more meetings to handle than the actual solutions that we're providing. And it felt like I was just being important or feeling important. I had status, I had salary, obviously, I had privileges that I couldn't have dreamed of any other way. So, for someone coming from Kyrgyzstan, having the privilege of traveling to different places where no, like, any embassy will give you a visa without any problem, and enjoying those privileges, but at the same time feeling inside this hollow feeling of success, like outside everything was shining, and inside it felt like I was not really doing the things that I could have, but I was just following the frameworks, the policies and strategies without really feeling the actual significant changes that I thought I could contribute to. And then also realizing that I didn't want to be famous for, I don't know, attending so many meetings, so many trainings. I didn't want to be famous for attending conferences or saying things like, I'm concerned about this community, or I'm concerned about these violations, and then feeling really powerless to do something really tangible about it. And I also didn't want to be famous for just being a diplomat and saying things nicely and beautifully. And then in the end, the outcome was not what I thought it should be. So then, as I started realizing this by, I think, 2019, so this was at that point, I was in the sector in the UN for 9 years. I started realizing things were not going the way that I expected or hoped for would go. And I also knew that if I kept going it, I would probably get to great positions, and I would be grateful from the standpoint of getting my career advancing. But in terms of actually making the change that I had hoped that I could have with all this power, all this money, all this resources, still not getting to the outcome that we could have, I felt like I would be lying to myself and to the employer if I stayed. And the only reason I would stay would be if I just wanted to keep my privileges, my status, my salary, my safety and stability, obviously, which are very important. And I know that they serve not only me, but a lot of my family members as well. But at the same time, I thought if this is only the reason I'm staying, then I would be not in integrity with myself, right? I wouldn't be honest to myself if I stayed only for those reasons. If I only stayed for the reasons of status or salary or for stability, then I would be betraying my ideals of contributing to the impact that I want to. And that felt dishonest. And that's why I thought, okay, if I really want to contribute to the impact I want to, and if I really want to do that in the way that I want to, right? And the only reason I'm not doing it because I'm afraid that I cannot get that security and safety and stability myself. If I'm afraid I can't really get that salary myself, if I'm really afraid that I can't really get the privileges myself, that's the reason why I wouldn't go for the impact that I want to. Then I thought, okay, I better work on that fear, right? I better work on that fear, on that identity of being someone who actually can do things can do the impact the way I want to, and also have the stability and the safety and the security and the salary and all of this. Because if that's the only reason why I'm like, for the rest of my life I'm deciding to stay in UN, even though I don't really believe in what we're doing and how we're doing it, even though I don't really see the outcomes that I would like to see, even though I don't really every day, like day to day, I'm not really contributing to the way that I could have because of a lot of other constraints of like never ending meetings, never ending deadlines, never ending, I don't know, politics and intrigues. If those are the reason I'm not really contributing to the thing that I want to, and I'm keeping my job because I'm just afraid that I can't do it on my own, then I felt for the next, I don't know, 20 years of my life, 25, 30 years of my life, I will be just lying to myself and keep justifying to myself how I couldn't make that transition. That's why let me just keep doing things that I don't want to. Let me just keep forcing myself that the way I don't want to. And also in this case, I think one of the biggest impact that I have that has made to me is that realization of how I have criticized my mom when I was growing up. I criticized my mom for staying with the husband that she didn't want to, enduring violence, physical violence, and we don't even talk about like psychological violence. My mom suffered through her entire life this violence from my dad, and she never left because she considered this is a stable place. She was afraid to go back to her community where she would be shunned, right? And she didn't have any education, any other way to go, and therefore she stayed and endured everything. And back in the day, I would obviously criticize her so much for why she didn't leave my dad and how this whole violence affected our whole family, including myself. And I kept telling her why she wouldn't do that. And nowadays, I obviously understand why she felt like she couldn't. But then I felt I was in the same situation. I was seeing UN as a stable place, as a safe place, as a place that gives me all the privileges, all the status, all the things that I want to, right? Like some of my clients tell me it's like a golden cuff that we willingly go into, like a golden prison that we willingly go into and then never leave, even though we are pissed and we're not satisfied with what's going on, how it's going on inside. And we keep staying because we just feel like we can't really make any alternatives work for us. And that's why we keep enduring it, right? And then I was feeling like, okay, it is the same situation as my mom, right? In my mom's case, it was her husband who were holding the keys to the golden cuff. In my case, it was the UN who was holding the keys to my golden cuff. And I was thinking, okay, if the only thing that's separating me from my freedom is my fear, right, and my fear of not being able to make things work the way I want to, then I better work on making that fear work for me, or understanding and managing that fear. And of course also being in the identity of, okay, I'm someone who can make things work outside, and I don't need to be bound by this UN golden cuff privileges for the next 30 years of my life. And that's how I left in 2020, by getting ready for learning all about how to manage my emotions, my fears, and everything. Learning all about how I am an independent, autonomous human being. No matter what UN proposes to me, I can decide to choose to take it, or I can also choose not to take it. And I'm also a powerful human being who can make things work outside, who can make things work in the way that I want to, in the way that I really believe in. And that's how I left in 2020 December. And then 2021 January, I started my coaching work because coaching helped me work through a lot of issues of feeling a victim of my life, and it helped me go through depression and burnout and realizing how I don't need to be in depression and burnout any longer. And in fact, depression and burnout comes from this feeling of not being in charge of your life, and coaching helped me really deeply understand how I'm in charge of my own life, and I don't need to be bound by any golden cuffs, golden prisons if I don't want to. And in fact, the only way that I don't succumb to that um, lucrative offer is if I'm capable of creating my own lucrative offer myself. If I'm capable of creating my own safety and stability and money and impact that I want to, then obviously I don't need to stay in the UN, or I don't need to keep accepting what UN wants to do things the way that UN wants to. I don't need to accept them anymore because I can do things on my own in the way that I would like to. And that helped me then move and resign from UN and start my own work. And since then, I was able to obviously create my own UN Peace 3 salary and so much more. I have been working on the impact that I really truly believe is so impactful in people's lives, to no longer be victim of their own lives, and to be able to work with people that I really love. And I would love for you to do this as well, or for you to feel this experience as well. And I feel in order to have that experience, we need to really work through our fears, our identities, and test whatever it is that we're wanting to do, test that and work through them and build that before we get ready to leave, if that's the wish. But that needs some consistent and intentional work. And I would love for you to do this work with me if you choose to. So we can really get you transitioning and working on the impact that really matters to you, being in the environment that really matters to you, and of course, making the money side of things work. Okay, my dears. I hope this was helpful for you to reflect on how, why, and how I have done it, and how you would like to do it for yourself as well. If this is you, come coach with me. There is a link for a consult.